Okay, we are reconvening into open session at 6 o'clock sharp. We're down on number 4, the invocation. Matt, if you will lead us in invocation, please.
Will you please stand with me? Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this day today. We appreciate the opportunity to be in this place with these people doing the business of Decatur Independent School District. We're thankful for all that you've done to bless us, and we pray that you would continue to do that. We pray a special prayer, Father, for our friends down in Paradise who are grieving the loss of a student there. We pray that you would wrap your arms around them and show them your love and care as only you can. We pray that you would be with our time together tonight. We pray all these things in your name. Amen.
We'll do number 6 or number 5, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we're going to move on to number 6, which is the recognition of our stellar 7-on-7 football team. So if the board would come around, please, so we can recognize them. And Mr. Lackey will take the oath.
All right, at this time, I have the pleasure of presenting our 7-on-7 football team that has been competing all summer and has qualified for the state competition that will take place June 27th and 28th down in College Station, Texas. They qualified for the state competition at the Brownwood 7-on-7 tournament. I think it was 2 weeks ago. And they've been playing in several tournaments, and this was the tournament that they were able to get to a certain level and get that qualification status. And so at the state tournament, there are three divisions. There's a Division I, which will have the 5A and 6A. The Division II, which will have both the 4A Division I schools and Division II schools and the 3A Division I schools. And that'll be the ones that these kids will be competing in. And then there's a Division III, which will have 3A and lower. So 7-on-7 has become obviously a big deal in the summer for these kids to compete at and play and keep them active and keep their skills sharp. And in true Decatur fashion, if we're competing, we're qualifying for state, and that's what this group has done. So I have the privilege of getting to present these guys tonight. So these are the guys that are on the team and their coaches that are with them tonight. So at this time, let's see how well they follow instructions. As I gave them in the summertime, it's a little shaky. But hey, I was impressed. They were here at 5:55, so these coaches did a great job getting them here on time. So at this time, with these guys come down, Jed Ross. Yeah, we can do our applause later because I got a big group. We can clap now or clap later, however y'all want to do it. Caden Forrest. I'll speed this up a little bit. Abraham Graham. Caden Cobb. Stand right there. Casey Boner. Andrew Ramirez. Chase Berg. Jet Jenkins. Alex Pentoa. Keaton Good. Devin Moreno. Lane Heston. Michael Trammell. Wesley Morton. Kaiser Swift. Jacob Garcia. Sam Cannon. Rylan Cavazos. Gage Terrell. Jace Watson. And their coaches were Jonathan Ross and Kyle Swift. We're going to need you guys to slide over this way so we can do a picture.
I think you are going to have to scoot down even more. Keep on coming. Got it, buddy?
1, 2, 3. Hold on, Jeff wasn't looking at me as usual. 1, 2, 3. Got it. Thank you all.
All right, moving on to number 7, public forum. I have to read this, so bear with me. Persons desiring to address the board must sign up at the designated time prior to the meeting. Board policy BED addresses public comment and public testimony at board meetings. Audience participation at a board meeting is limited to the public comments portions of the meeting designed for that purpose. At all other times during a board meeting, the audience shall not enter into discussions or debate on matters being considered by the board unless requested by the presenting officer. No presentation shall exceed 3 minutes. Our first, would you be my, okay, you be my, first we have Chris Fernahue. Chris, you got 3 minutes. Do you want a warning at 30 seconds or any, nope? Okay.
First off, hello, my name is Chris Fernahue.
And sorry, Chris, could you use the microphone just so everybody can hear? And press the red button if you would.
That work?
Yeah. Try to lean down a little bit if you can. You're tall.
All right. Hello, my name is Chris Fernahue, like we already talked about. I am the proud parent of homeschool children. I'm a longtime resident of Decatur. I actually went K through 12 here, as we were talking about. I remember watching Bambi up there on the screen, on the big screen, when they had no idea what to do with us after that. So what I'm here to ask for is for the board to discuss allowing homeschool kids to play in UIL and do UIL activities. There's a lot of other schools around the area in the district that are already allowing it. I reached out back 2 years ago to the previous superintendent and to previous board members by email and by phone to try to get this addressed. It went nowhere, so I'm here today to kind of push the situation along. Like I said it before, there's other schools in the district that are allowing it. There's other schools that we actually play in UIL activities and competing of anything that we're actually already competing against homeschool kids that are playing. So just to kind of broaden the talent pool, it makes sense because you're already playing against that type of situation. Like I said before, I did speak to other teachers and principals. I spoke to a principal in Birdville ISD. To his knowledge, everybody in Dallas Fort Worth is already allowing it as well. He didn't know it was not something that was commonly done. So he was kind of shocked whenever I said that Decatur still has not even had it brought up. Realistically, guys, like I said, what it boils down to is I'm asking y'all as a parent of children that just want to participate to please put it on the agenda. I would ask one of y'all to please put it on the agenda next month so this can actually be discussed more than just a public forum. I understand that's the way this kind of works. That way, if there is any questions, I'll be more than happy to be back to answer any questions that I can. I'll be more than happy to get the answers if I need to help make a decision one way or the other. I would just like a decision. Like I said, I reached out back in November 10th of 2022 in my email chain with the previous superintendent. I did get a response, but after that, it was just nothing.
30 seconds.
Again, I just want to thank all y'all for all that y'all do. I know this is a pretty thankless type job, and it takes a certain person to do what y'all are doing. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Will Carpenter.
Can we add it to the next month's agenda?
Made a note of it. So, would you like a 30-second warning, or when it gets closer to the 3 minutes?
Yes, sir, I would. Could I do a brief introduction before I start with my presentation?
Well, it would be part of the 3 minutes.
Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, board, appreciate you taking time for me today. Chief Delvin, Dr. Joyner, and Nate, Wall Street Bayless, congratulations on your new board memberships. My name is Will Carpenter, 1304 Hidden Oaks Lane. I'm also a city councilman, place 4, representing the south side and southwest side of this gorgeous city. I also have other roles too. I'm one of the co-commissioners for the Decatur Youth Sports Association, representing soccer. And even though I don't look like it, you may have seen me at Eagle Stadium wearing Italian tall soccer socks and a referee jersey. Segue. So my ask today is middle school. Thinking about other programs in this school district that has middle school is football, volleyball, choir, band, cross country, cheerleading, FFA, and maybe I'm missing a few. So how does middle school soccer work? This starts right after, so high school championships is the middle of April. The following week it starts middle school. It's a 4 to 6 week season. Who would our opponents be? I know there's been a district realignment with 4-7A, so who has middle school games, programs? Pilot Point, Bridgeport, Mineral Wells, and Gainesville. Also with the new UIL things I just saw yesterday through my new email, you got some 3A schools that are coming along. Other possibilities for opponents would also be all the 45 middle schools at Northwest. Cost, as we go through the budget, as I sit on city council, we're going through budget right now. I sit on the budget committee. So we already have a program. Coach is already on his maximum stipends, the balls, facilities, the recycling of uniforms. Besides officials, travel, that's it. Ancillary costs has already been confirmed to be paid for by the school boosters. We'd be also, since I also sit on the rec league, we'd be willing to rent the Eagle Stadium as well. So no skin in the game for me. I have 2 kids. I have an entering senior on the swim team, and I have an entering freshman that's a volleyball player. So this isn't for me. This is for the kids. Is there anybody here that is interested in middle school? Stand up. Stand up. There we go. One of my main mantras, or it's not my mantra.
30 seconds.
Yes, sir. Inside of the Jones Field Hall is a billboard that says, "It's all for the kids." So that's it. I'm just an advocate for them. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, agenda item number 8, which is the consent agenda.
Stan, before we move forward, I want to
yeah.
add that to next month as well. Let's have that discussion.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Number 8, the consent agenda. In there, the minutes from the May 10th special meeting, the minutes for the May 13th regular meeting, the minutes of the May 20th special meeting, May 28th special meeting, May 29th special meeting. It's been a busy month for the board in May, and June was no different. We also have budget amendments in there and purchases of greater than $25,000, of which there are none for this month. But we can start with the budget amendments unless someone needs to have any discussion about the minutes from all those meetings. Okay. All right, we have 4 budget amendments. One is to increase the attorney fees budget due to increased costs. That's budget amendment number 10. If you want, we can discuss these individually, or we can discuss them as a group, whichever.
How much are we increasing it?
That's a real, is Cindy here?
Yeah.
Where is she? Cindy, can you come up and address this, please? Do you have the numbers for the increase that you're asking for? Okay.
Yeah, the attorney's fees for 27,413, number 11, 40,000 for the general fund, and then 40,000 for the Thomas Christian Fund. Number 12 is a wash because it's just switching functions for special ed. And then number 13, activities that go beyond district, and that's 135,000.
And was that an increase in attorney fees just this last month?
Yes, right now, I don't have the attorney bill for last month's budget amendment.
So how much have we spent on attorney fees up to this point, up to June?
Up to June.
Well, up to
last-
May, since we don't have last month's bill yet.
Up through what we paid in June, 'cause we paid a bill first of June.
Can we confirm that? Because it was 50,000 last month, and the budget should have been over 50,000 to start with, correct?
But then we had a June bill that came in, it was 25,000. I can get you the exact amount, I just don't have the exact amount on top of my head.
Actually, I sent an email earlier to the board president and Lyle about that. I'd like to have the details of what we're doing because we've almost doubled a normal year of expenditures in legal. We need to kind of understand what's going on.
Was that? What did we spend last year in attorney fees? Sorry, I'm just thinking off the top of my head.
But the budget is plus or minus 65,000 in legal fees.
For the year?
It's what was in the budget last year. Well, but ballpark.
General.
We're quite a bit under
65,000.
where we're at this year.
And we've already gone over in June?
So some of this on there, from what I read earlier, was also for the security.
Yes, that is separate. I'm counting for that separate.
Okay, and so that one, we're getting little small tranches. Can we get a recap of what's really happened under the security situation and how much money's actually been spent? Everything that's been spent, yeah. So, because obviously, we can't handle this if it happens every year. It's been a lot of money, and I don't know how much it's all together, how much we've spent in that. And that's after supposedly having the insurance on top of that. So if we could get an analysis on there and figure out if there's a better way to protect ourselves in the future from these incidents.
Does anybody have any other questions for Cindy?
The $40,000 transfer, we need to discuss that one too. What's going on with the $40,000 transfer?
That's the transfer from the corrective action plan, that's the corrective action.
Do we want to discuss that?
Can, yeah. It's open to discussion.
Is the board aware of all of this, of what's happening? Because it was submitted to the paper, the district submitted to the paper a press release saying this is not the situation, but it is a situation. So
The response back from the TDA was given to everybody on the board, so everybody knows what their response was. And the corrective action, as far as I know, is going to be taken in compliance with it.
okay, so we have a press release that was submitted saying that this purchase was approved prior, and it wasn't. And so that's why the TDA is coming back. The TDA is coming back and saying you did not do what you were supposed to do, correct? Right. We owe the community a proper press release explaining what happened. And since we already submitted one and the board approved to put this online with all of this press release and all the data, we need a correction of that so that folks understand that we're taking $40,000 of general funds to pay for something that we didn't have a needs assessment for. And we didn't have that need, and that needs to be corrected, and that's important. And that's not including the attorney fees, which we don't know how much was spent on attorney fees on this yet either, and that should be added to that $40,000.
Do we have a total of attorney fees based on the trailer? I know we, okay.
Okay, so is that the ask, is that there's some sort of press release?
I would assume since the board, we had to put it on the agenda to submit this. We put it on as a board agenda to release attorney-client privileges, and then the next day, the messenger posted a pre-written script about what happened, and that is not true. It was inaccurate data, and that should be corrected, because the board went out of their way before a board election to put this data out.
So what are you saying?
I think we need to correct it. I think we owe a correction to the community that
I
what really
believe
happened.
that we can work on that.
That's what I would like to see.
Okay. I believe that we can handle that.
So my question is, as the district, did we put something out, or was that something the messenger took up on their own? Because if it's something the messenger took up on their own, that's a total separate issue. The basic deal is we had an issue where, just a quick summary, we had an issue where there was paperwork and stuff that wasn't filed correct. If anybody wants to correct me, please feel free. Information, paperwork wasn't filed in correctly manner, an anonymous complaint was made, whatever reason it was made, by people who have knowledge of that was made towards the TDA. The TDA did an investigation, came up that yes, paperwork and stuff was not filed in a timely manner. Is that correct? Simple bottom line. I think the messenger is here. I think the messenger could make a story if they would want. I think we're done with that, and I would just think we move on.
Well, it actually wasn't the messenger. The district submitted.
Well, that's what I just asked.
Yeah.
That's what I asked.
Yeah,
Did
the
district-
lawyers,
did
we
the
voted for that.
district- Did the district send out something on its own, or was it something that the messenger posted?
That's what the board voted to submit that data to the messenger.
It was a vote done late in the evening after we'd been enclosed. We came out, we released the information, and correct me if I'm wrong. We released the information to the messenger so that they could properly put out an article.
Then I would
With
assume that the
incorrect
messenger is being here
information.
tonight, and that there is an understanding at this point in time that there was paperwork and things that were not filed. A complaint was made. I would assure Mr. Knox is sitting there taking notes as we speak, and that he could write a corrective statement on that as it relates to this.
I guess the other parts is supposed to be online. Per the vote, this was going to be online with all the data. So I don't know if it's still online. I don't know what we've done with that. But when they released that, it was supposed to be put on our website. And I don't know if that stayed. This was the board president requested that to be happening. The previous board request.
The bottom line, I think Robin, our Director of Communications, probably can shed some light on this.
It was put online
So then in theory, we could basically do the exact same thing and we could move on.
So we can do we need to do another released document or a release and put that online, correct?
The bottom line for the public, though, to understand is that, and explain this as I asked this question, that we are or are not paying anything back to the TDA for this deal. This is okay, can you explain that, what, for the rest of the public, the board all is privy to this corrective action, but can you just kind of briefly explain so that the public understands what is taking place here?
Basically, it's just
Microphone. No, push it up red.
Okay.
There you go.
So basically, it's, you have one checking account at the bank. I'll use it as a checking account example. You have the general fund checking account, you have the child nutrition checking account. Child nutrition is going to I'm moving $40,000 from general fund to the child nutrition bank account. That's the only thing that's happening.
Well, those
in
are
order
federal
to
funds.
satisfy the TDA.
They're federal funds. Child nutrition is federal funds. So
It's a combination.
the USDA and the TDA and then our local COA policies govern the usage of those funds. It's a separate bucket of money. And that's why we have to have a our nutrition account approved on the budget. We prove that on the front end, and you have to use it a certain way. You have to have prior proper approval before purchases. There's no such thing as a sole source approval of a trailer, which
No one ever said it was a sole
our
source.
legal gave us a
Well, I
letter.
wasn't privy to any
I know,
of that.
that's why I'm saying
So-
that to our board. Our legal said that the district said it was a sole source approved purchase, which it was not. There's a lot of things here that should be discussed by the board, and the board new members have not seen any of this data yet. There's a lot of information here. It's not just a simple swiping money and moving money back and forth. Those purchases should have been assessed on the front end, and they should have been pre-planned. We just had a discussion here recently about buying cafeteria tables and an ice maker, and we were told why we couldn't do that. And this trailer was not needed, and now it's $40,000 that come out of the same bucket that you pay teachers for. Now that's going to be moved over to child nutrition. It wasn't needed, wasn't necessary, and we are in a financial crunch right now.
Do you have a plan for that, for addressing that?
Yes, we're going to start charging utilities to the child nutrition services. I'm waiting on a letter from the architect, and then we'll start transferring utilities over to the child nutrition fund, and they'll pay their portion of the utilities, and it'll more than compensate for the $40,000. And it will be that going forward.
I think we can all agree, okay, the process, there were things that in hindsight should have been done, weren't. I think in this situation, you address it, which we have, and we need to move forward. We've been talking about this for months. We have got huge issues within this district that we need to address, and we need to put this to bed, and we need to put it to bed tonight. My opinion.
How much, and you said we don't know how much we paid in attorney fees. To me, that's a big frustrating part for me, is that,
It's frustrating, I think, for all of us.
right, but things weren't done according to the way they were supposed to be done. I mean, getting approval, when you're supposed to have the approval done beforehand, and you don't get it done and you don't do it for 4 months, only because, I don't know, attorneys said so, and then we've spent all this money when it should have been done the right way in the first place. Right, but what I want to know how that gets fixed. $20,000 in attorney fees, $25,000 in attorney's fees, that's not pocket
Okay,
change.
what do you suggest?
I'm saying that is the problem that I have, is the waste. That's frustrating.
I think policy, if we don't, actually, this board doesn't know policy and doesn't read it, and doesn't actually, not look, because the lawyers told us something that was totally not true, because they did not do their homework. And if we don't know it firsthand ourselves and take the time to read it, and it's not a whole lot, take you an afternoon, then that's a problem, and it is on us at that point. Because our job is to hold the district accountable to policy.
Again, I'll go back, what,
Well, policy dictates what you do, but that's something that we have to discuss in closed meeting.
Scott, do you know that there is policy for this?
Well, we have COAs and CAA. COA, legal and local, is your food procurement in the child nutrition program. And then COA, and then we also have DH. DH is your ethics side of the topic. So yeah, policy is in there. Procurement policy on child nutrition is different than procurement of general funds. And it comes from the USDA to the TDA to us. And it's on us as a board to hold district accountable for rules and regulations.
Okay, we will, we're going to be going to closed session here momentarily. We will discuss this in closed session. Okay, thank you. In light of that, then, I think that we should approve 8A and 8C and postpone the budget amendment for 8B until we discuss it in closed session, and then when we come back out in open session, we can discuss it in open session if we need to.
You said 8A, 8.
So in order to expedite this, we will, if we can, I would like to see a motion made to approve 8A and 8C, but since there are no expenditures over $25,000. So basically, the way the motion would probably read is that, let me go back to that.
So
Hold on.
8A,
Well,
8B1.
I think the motion would be recommend to approve the consent agenda with the exception of 8B as presented to the board.
Hey, Stan, can I ask a quick question? I
Yeah.
don't want to keep beating this, but is it going to change the fact that we still don't have to move those monies? That's going to be my question. Even if we go back to the back and discuss the separate issue, we still have to have those monies in those locations, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we will do that no matter what, because we required that by the government.
Okay, so, I mean, to me, the second part of discussing other issues is a separate issue, other than Cindy requesting that we move funds to cover that. And if that's the case,
That's true.
I would assume
we're
we
still
can
gonna
still
move money.
approve that.
Okay.
And that's a separate issue.
I see what you're saying. I see
So we
what you're
might as
saying.
well just-
So we could approve all those and then discuss whatever holding accountable and back there. Oh. Okay,
Then in that regard, I make a motion that we approve consent agenda items A, B, and C as stated.
okay.
Okay, Delvin?
All right, I have a motion by Delvin to approve the consent agenda as presented to the board. I have a second from Matt. Is there more discussion before we go to a vote? All right, all those in favor, by raising your hand, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes 7-0. Next, information items, number 9. 9A, the end of the year PowerPoint presentation. That is from Dr. Wooten. So, Dr. Wooten, I'll let you take it from here. No?
No? Okay.
There you go.
And just so the audience knows, this was meant to be displayed, but a storm fried everything, so it's about to get fun.
Yeah, just a
as-
quick deal for the public, sorry to interrupt, just to let you know, we normally would have a presentation on the walls, you see that there are not. We had a little electrical storm issue that knocked out our presentation options, so.
I did make copies of the big PowerPoint presentation, and it's on the back, just so that if you were in the audience, you could follow along. So I'm just going to go through. So the data that we're looking at right now is the preliminary data for the most recent STAR for 2024. And that is, because I gave you guys so many pages, but it's this one, is what I'm going to go through first. And so... It's like the third page just kind of talks about the data sources, just what assessment we used. That's in that chart there. And then what type it is, skills, result levels, and data presentation. So that all listed out for you first school we'll go over is Carson Elementary. And then I will say this is also on our website. So anybody can go and see this PowerPoint presentation. The only difference is I put district first and then did the schools second. So Circle PM, which is our pre-K, and Texkia is our kinder, and TPRI is first and second grade. This is, if you look at pre-K, so at the beginning of the year, we were at 68%. At the end of the year for our pre-K reading, we reached up to 74%. For kindergarten reading, which is Texkia, is 86%. We went to 97%. First grade TPRI is 76%. We went to 98% by the end of the year. And then second grade TPRI is 50%, and we went to 79%. Pre-K math for Circle PM was 68. We went to 100% with that. And then kindergarten Texkia was 55, and we went to 91%. And the only reason why I'm reading all of those out loud is because nobody can, unless they have it. And so if you turn the page, you're going to hit some of the preliminary star. And so if you see third grade for Carson, I did it across, so you have 2024, 2023, where you see the comparison there. It's just strictly the difference with those two. But cohort, I also want you to pay attention to, because that's more of an apples to apples, because it's what so if you're looking at fourth grade, it's what the third graders did the year before with STAR. Does that make sense? And so for 2024, for third grade, for RLA, for reading is 69%. For approaches, 36% for meets. And then for masters, it was 8%. Where you can see those comparisons, I did green if it was in the positive. I did not red, angry red, but soft red if it was in the negative. If you go to fourth grade, we were at 82%. Meets was 46%, and masters was 12%. And then for fifth grade, it was at 80% for approaches, 46% for meets, and masters was at 17%. And then when you look at the cohorts, you can see where the state was at fourth grade, for example, is at 82%, which is where we were this year. But if you actually look at the cohort, you'll see that that cohort was at 63% the year before. So though that's pretty significant growth for that particular grade level for Carson. Is it okay to go to the next page? Okay. How many districts for that cohort? This is just like our third grade going into fourth grade. This is our groups. It's not multiple. No, it's the same kiddos. This gives you a more apples to apples, and you're going to see some that you can see some pretty dramatic increases, and you're going to see some that kind of stayed about the same, and you'll see some that went a little lower. Is it okay to go to the next page? Okay. And so I went over reading. This is math. And so you'll see that for approaches, we were at 65%. For meets, it was 41%. And then masters was 9% for third grade. For approaches for fourth grade, we were at 60%. Meets was 35%. And then masters was 11%. And then math approaches for fifth grade was 69%, math meets at 23%, and then only 1% was at masters. And then science, and I'm going to get into science a little bit more with some of the other stuff, and so bear with me on that, and I'll kind of lump it together. But one thing I will say across the board when it comes to science is this is one of those tests that is not just fifth grade science TEKS. So there's some first grade, there's some second grade, there's some third grade, there's some fourth grade, and then there's fifth grade. And so when you don't necessarily have a set curriculum, like we use STEM scopes, which is great, but that's more of a resource, it's not a curriculum. And we are now going into our third year with PhD. That's going to take time. It's obviously something that's on the radar to be looking at and doing those checks, but that's going to take some time. And so I wanted to say that. So this will be our third year coming in. And then for the particular teacher at Carson, this also was their first year to teach science. And so retention and teacher retention and having that consistency, I do believe plays a factor too. And if you look at, where else was I going to look? The other thing I wanted to show or talk about, and there's a article, or there's something else I made copies for you, is that overall the state went down 8 percentage points for science, and then I'll get into it a little bit more because I pulled up, or I have some charts and graphs that we got from Region 11 to show you state and district when it came to science in general. Well, constructive responses in general. Is it okay to turn the page? And then with RAN, that's our next one. So for Circle PM, beginning of the year was 14%. They went up to 90%. Kindergarten reading with Texakia was 71%, went to 91%. First grade reading TPR went from 51% to 97%. Second grade reading TPR I went from 66% to 91%. And then pre-K math was 14% to 98%. And kindergarten math went from 70, and that actually dropped down a little bit. So I have not pulled the data just to see what types of questions they were, but I will in the weeks to come, or days to come. And then if you turn the page, you'll see some English and Spanish. And so pre-K reading was 21% to 88. Texakia, which is kindergarten, 75% to 91. First grade went from 73 to 100. And then TPRI, 65% to 85%. And then pre-K math, Circle PM, was 14% to 98%. And then once again, that math went from 70 to 61. And then you can see the Spanish. For pre-K, it was 9% to 92. Kinder, 68% to 91. First grade, 31 to 92. And then second grade reading was 68 to 100. And that was the Spanish group. And now we'll get into STAR. And so if you look at third grade for approaches and reading, 80%. Third grade meets, 41%. And third grade masters was 11%. And then if you look in fourth grade for approaches, we're at 81%. If you look at meets, it's at 50%. And if you look at masters, it was 8%. And then when you go to fifth grade, approaches was 67%. And then meets was 33%. And then masters was 12%. But the one thing I want you to go back and look is if you look in those cohort years, if you see the gains in fourth grade and fifth grade in particular, they're pretty good gains from the meets. And then if you go to the next page, which is math, approaches is 76%, meets is 43%, and masters is 10%. Approaches for fourth grade is 55%, meets is 29%, and masters is 11%. If you go to fifth grade, it's 63%, and it's 25% for meets, and then 7% for masters. And then once again, if you look at fifth grade, yes, it is lower than the state, which I'm always going to look at when we're lower than the state. But if you look at that cohort, that was a 40% to 63%, which was a huge growth. Same with the meets and the masters for fourth grade. And then for science, that's where we went to 41% for approaches, 6% for meets, and then 1% for the science. And that particular teacher has 3 years under their belt, but we actually lost them. So we could get some with more experience, but we could get some with less. And then here is just the English only breakdown. So reading 81%, meets 43, and 11% for masters for third grade, 82% for reading, 50% or reading approaches, reading meets is 50%, and then 9% for masters. And then fifth grade approaches is 66%, 36% for meets, and 13% for masters. And so yes, they showed some growth with the cohort, but we still need to look at that just because of below the state overall. And then for third grade math, is 78% for approaches, 44% for meets, 10% for masters, 57 in fourth grade for approaches, 30% for meets, and 11% for masters. And then for math approaches, 64%, 25%, and then 8% for masters. And then once again, science here was at 43%, 7% for meets, 1% for masters. And like I said, that teacher has had 3 years experience. And then this is just kind of a blurb just because of FERPA. If we identified 2 students, if you turn the page, in third grade or fourth grade, it'd be kind of apparent who that is, so we didn't. So. And then it's STEM. So they don't have pre-K, that's why it's NA. And then Texakia there was 90%. And then TPRI was 77, well, that was the beginning of the year, was 90% to, and then we went up to 99%. And then for first grade TPRI, 77%, and then we went up to 97%. And then second grade is 68%, and we went up to 95%. And then kindergarten Texakia, we started at the beginning of the year at 71% and went up to 93%. And then if you turn the page to STAR, if you look at 2024 for third grade, they were at 75% approaches, meets is 48%, and masters was 18%. And then fourth grade reading and approaches was 87%, meets is 62%, and masters is at 33%. And then fifth grade was at 78%, meets is at 53%, and masters is at 22%. And the one thing I will say too, with the fifth grade teachers at NS, those are all first year teaching fifth grade. And if you turn the page for third grade math, it was at 77%, meets is 45%, masters is 17%, math approaches is at 74%, and fourth grade meets is 43%, and masters is 13%, and then fifth grade math approaches is at 75%, meets at 34%, and masters at 11%, and for the science, you see, is at 52% for approaches, meets is 19%, and 9% for masters. Questions with that? Okay. And so for young, pre-K, Circle PM, beginning of the year was 64%, went up to 72%. Kindergarten, Texakia, 83%, went to 87%. First grade, 83% to 93%. And second grade TPRI, 43% to 82%. Circle PM, 64% to 94%. And Texkia, 68% to 78%. And then for third grade, reading approaches is at 77%. Meets is at 49%. Masters is at 11%. Fourth grade, reading approaches is at 98%. Meets is at 78%. And masters is at 46%. And then reading approaches is at 79%. And meets is 57%. And masters is 35%. And I will say some of those differences too are based on the number of experience with some of the teachers. You can see a big difference with like fourth grade in particular at Young. They are solid, and they've been there quite a while together, working together. And then there was some new teachers that it just takes a little bit more time. For third grade math, for 2024 is 77%. Meets is 51%. Masters is at 14%. Math approaches is at 88%. Meets is at 59%. And masters is at 39%. And then fifth grade is 88%, 65%, and 29%. And then science, and this is where experience really shows. The teacher there has 20 plus years, and she got a 71%, which is the highest one. But once again, I think knowing how some things might play out, or what is a prevalent concept to be taught or is going to be asked, I think all of that has something to do with it. And that's one thing that's going to happen this year, because we have those built-in PD days, is that we're going to work, I'm going to work with her on just really looking at things and dissecting things, and perhaps making sure we're hitting certain concepts a little bit longer. I think PhD science is very, very good, but I also think there's just a lot that's covered and it goes a little broad. And so diving deeper will be the big thing to work on, and I'll take advantage of the Fridays. And if you go to McCarroll,
Does PhD science, do they offer that work too? Because obviously the fifth grade is our hit on the science. Do they come back and look at the STAR testing versus what the curriculum is?
I've turned in the preliminary scores to them,
So they review that for
they're currently
us?
looking at them.
Okay.
And I was in touch with PhD. They typically say at least 3 years, which I'm not surprised by that, as far as just the length of time with a new curriculum. But also, if you think about it, so you got some first grade concepts, you got some second grade, but you have more third, more fourth, and then more fifth. And so 3 years would make it where you've used that curriculum for third grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade. So I can see why they say that as well.
On our internal quarterly testing, were we showing those kind of deficits at fifth grade science?
So when we do the CBAs, so the CBAs, remember, the CBA tests are real time, that particular 6 weeks, and what we're seeing as far as content goes. So I would suspect that those, and I do expect those to be like higher, because that's that particular 6 weeks. So I would assume that to be much higher. So I think those are still in line with what we see. I think the STAR is just much more vast, much broader. You're not quite sure how the TEAC is going to be assessed and the question that is assessed. Once we get to see some of this stuff, I'll be able to have a better gauge of that. I don't have access to that quite yet. But we'll look at all of it. The interim's a hard one. It's one of the things that we're switching up for next year, because the interim testing, we're not doing that for that November, just because it frustrated everybody. We didn't get really good data from that. Instead, we're going to do more extended CBAs. So it will be real time in that, but we'll have more of the constructive responses, just to give them even more practice and a little bit more there. And so that's a few instructional changes that we're going to make. And then obviously, once I can dive deeper into it, I mean, those will be things that we highlight.
Thank you.
And then with McCarroll, so if you look at sixth grade, approaches is at 76%, 53% meets, 18% masters. If you look at seventh grade, 76% at approaches, 57% meets, 33% masters. And then even though they went down a little bit with that, which is the first thing I looked at, when you look at the state average, we're a little bit higher than the state with that. And then reading approaches at 87%, meets is 62%, and masters is at 31%. And then if you go to math, is 73% in sixth grade, 34% for meets, and 9% for masters. And seventh grade is where the big hit went, and that was due to not having a teacher full-time. So the first 6 weeks, we had a teacher last that 6 weeks, and then decided this was not for her. And then we had another teacher come in, and they had some issues, and so that kind of fluctuated for quite a bit. My department helped out. Brandy was all over it, so that was the bigger factor here than I think anything else, to be honest with you. And so these are the kiddos that we're going to have to look at very closely when they go into 8th grade to see how we can, fill those gaps. And that's one of the things that we're looking at doing is changing up some of the advanced and looking at that. Part of the reason being it's a House bill that we need to make sure we're identifying those with STAR, but we're restructuring that a little bit that I think will also benefit for the upcoming school year. And then Algebra 1 approaches was 100%, Algebra 1 meets is 91%, and Algebra 1 masters is 73%. So those are great. You also need to remember that these are also the kiddos that are kind of on that advanced track in middle school. So, and then the 8th grade science is 80%, meets is at 50%, masters is at 18%, and then social studies is at 54%, meets is at 25%, and masters is at 10%. Those are still low numbers, and so we spent a lot of time during professional development also putting some things into place for the upcoming year of what we're looking at. Some pre-assessments are going to go into social studies just to understand some of the content that we're exploring. Also, when it comes to subjects, reading and math and science in 5th grade becomes the focus. Social studies kind of takes a back seat, and I think by the time they get to 8th grade, it catches up. So we're looking at that too. And then the high school. So English 1 approaches is at 64%, English 1 meets is at 54%, masters is 11%, and then English 2 approaches is at 75%, English 2 meets is at 61%, and English 2 masters is at 9%. And then Algebra 1 is at 69% for approaches, 27% for meets, and 7% for masters. So let's talk a little bit about some of the high school. So one thing when we started looking at things, and then obviously I was talking to Lyle and then the counselors and so forth, is so there were 57 retesters, which means they didn't pass the first English 1 and they had to retest it. And out of those 57, only 9 passed it. So if you were to look at just 9th grade alone, you would have been at about 74%. And so those are things that we're looking to put into place for those that did not pass and would be retesters, of losing an elective and them being accountable to take that class until they pass it, because it's a graduation requirement. And so that's one of the things that we're looking at. English 2, if you look at only 10th grade, we were really at 80%, but when you look at the 30 retesters, we only got 6 out of those 30 retesters. So once again, that's kind of where some of that kind of bit us. Also, there were 2 new teachers in English 1. So that was another part of it. And then so biology approaches was at 94%, biology meets is at 53%, biology masters is 11%, U.S. history approaches is at 98%, meets at 70%, and then masters is at 39%. And once again, experience definitely helped there. And then algebra 1 for approaches is at 75%, meets is at 40%, masters is at 20%. And then just some of the district data. So you saw it individually by campus, and then overall as a district. With the Tex Kia and Circle PM, overall we were at 45% for beginning of the year, 80% for end of the year, 82% for beginning of the year, 93% for end of the year, 71% for first grade beginning of the year to 97% at the end of the year, and then second grade is 56%, and then 87%. And then math was 45% to 97% and 66% to 80% as a district. And then for third grade, for district as a whole, we were at 76% for approaches in third grade reading. Third grade meets is at 43%, masters is at 12%, fourth grade reading approaches is at 86%, meets is at 57%, masters is at 22%. And then fifth grade overall is at 76%, meets is at 47%, and masters is at 21%. And then overall, third grade math approaches is at 74%, 45% meets, 12% masters. Fourth grade approaches is at 67%, 40% meets, and 17% masters. And then fifth grade math is at 73% approaches, 36% meets, and 12% masters. And then science is at 50% approaches, 14% meets, and 6% masters. And then the last chart, I'm not going to read that across. That just kind of puts in everything in order, just so you can see the breakdown from district to each campus, and then the states on the side. And then with the extended constructed responses, so that's the portion, I guess I'll look back at this. So this sheet right here, this is also on the website. This just kind of highlights the things that I went through. I'm not going to go over that, but you'll have that as well. And then you have another document that looks like this. Do you see that one? So that's the state information. So basically, the state gave that to Region 11. And so this shows you the percentage of how many kiddos scored a 0 rating, because it's a 10-point, you get 10 points for extended constructed response. And so you can see the percentage by each grade level of how many scored 0 and throughout, and there's all the different grades are in that packet. And then this is this one right here, same thing, but it's the region breakdown that Region 11 sent.
Recap that for me. I'm sorry. These high percentages of 0 ratings, this is due to the AI testing, grading of this? What's happening here? Why is,
Well,
we're talking across the state, so 'cause you guys can't see all this, but grade 3, 39% zero, 31% grade 4, 48% grade 5. These are high numbers of zeros.
They are, and it depends who you ask. So if you're asking superintendents, and this was all over the news this weekend, they're going to tell you that they have concerns regarding the AI technology that they're using. They're not calling it AI. The official name is where is it? Natural language processing, NLP is what they're calling it, but it is a component of AI. And so if you ask superintendents, that's what they're saying is the issue. If you're to ask TEA, one of the articles, they said they changed the rubric. So in the past, when a kiddo might have answered something or gave a couple, I don't know, broken sentences, key concepts, but there was something there, they would get some points for that. You do not get points for that anymore. So, like I said, depends who you ask. I mean, probably the honest truth of it is it's both. The rubric changing a little bit and then how they grade it.
Do we get the data broken down at this level eventually that shows how many, what zero ratings we got? In our
Yeah,
district?
and once we get all that, I mean, part of it is it's pulling it and looking at it, and that takes time to compile. But that's the kind of stuff that happens over the summer. So we can start getting that to the campus principals and the teachers so that when we're doing campus plans, it's very specific to that particular campus. So we'll be able to get it by student at that point.
Are you hearing rumors that the current last year's STAR testing has never been graded officially from the state? It's still in court, correct?
And it's still
Not
officially graded.
So we don't have a score on last year's data. And do you foresee districts suing over this?
We don't currently have the accountability rating overall with all the A through F from last year. I suspect that these concerns will be raised to TEA regarding that as well. If it's
think it
another
is
lawsuit,
important.
I'm not sure.
I think it is important for the community to understand that there are no graded ratings from the state of Texas because it's still in litigation. I still hear rumor mills in social media that says certain campuses are certain grades, but there is no state approved grading. It's assumptions. You can if you have what they originally planned on grading this as. If you don't.
Once we know what some of this is going to translate into, then we'll have a better idea. I am hesitant to say I think it's this or that just because we don't know what that lawsuit's going to bring. Like now, once I get more clear direction on that, I'd feel more comfortable going, hey, based on this, this is what I potentially could predict. But the minute you start kind of putting things together and you're not quite sure how it all shakes out, that makes me nervous because I don't want any miscommunication or misnomers out there about campuses. That's tough. And so I gave you that breakdown, and then this was just, Moat Casey does a really good job of breaking down the STAR data and kind of giving you, so I made a copy for you, and that's in the tree I killed for you, as well as just some of the other articles for your info. Any other questions?
Can you help me better understand what exactly is like the threshold for approaches, meets, masters? Is approaches like a 60, meets is a 70, masters
You would
is an
think,
80?
but no. And every single grade or every single like third grade's threshold will be different than fourth grade's threshold, will be different than a history test, will be different than a science test, or so it's different throughout. And so the state determines, once they get all the STAR data in, they determine this is what's going to make approaches, this is what's going to make meets, and this is what's going to make masters, and that fluctuates. And so, no, I can't give you a clear-cut I mean, if I could, then that would make life easier, but no. Sorry.
Am I reading this, or, I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt, did I? Okay. Am I reading this correctly? That it, let's just say, back on this 0 rating.
Are
if
you on?
I'm looking at grade 5. Region 1, region.
Okay, the region. Sorry. I literally killed a tree. So
Sorry.
it's okay.
That, am I reading it correctly where it says special education, 75% of special ed kids got a 0 rating in this
And
region?
you're looking at grade 5?
Correct.
Yes.
Is my reading that correctly?
It's the percent. So it's the rating and the percent.
So, this is being done by AI. Right, this is like, whatever they call it.
So the extended constructed responses are looked at with AI, and then 25%
Are hand graded.
are hand graded if something comes up where it just doesn't seem like it's normal or abnormal. But here's the fun part. So let's say we were to go through a student, we would look at this and we'd really question some of the extended constructive responses. Well, if we were to question that, to send that back to TEA to be reevaluated is $50 a kid that we have to pay.
And so their reasoning, so if TEA is defending this, they're gonna say, oh, well, these were blank pages? The response was blank?
Until I get them back, I mean, I could look at it. I mean, I would,
Right,
once we get this back, we could look at it, but and that could be a reason for the zeros. It could also
I'm just
be,
trying to understand what the reasoning is. Like, I mean, we can say,
well, a 0 is no longer a blank page. A 0 could be that they have some statements on there, but they're just not counting that
they're
anymore.
completely wrong. Okay,
But nothing on a page could be it too.
okay. Okay, thanks.
Anything else? And then if you guys, I know this was a lot, and I know it was not easy listening to me say all of this out loud, but if you have questions with anything, just give me a call and I'll try to answer that the best I can.
Okay.
I'd like to know what the principals think. How do y'all feel? Are y'all excited, happy? Where we at? Stephanie? What do y'all think about the STAR testing?
Let's don't put them on the spot.
I
mean-
wanted to sit there and say, I think there's a lot of positive of what I just saw. And I think that everybody should be commended for the hard work that they've done, because I saw a lot of positive movement.
And there
And
is
that's-
a
I
lot of
think that should be-
positive, and
that
in
should be said.
particular with Rand always being at the center of attention for a lot of things, I think the growth that you saw in Rand absolutely positively deserves recognition, because it surely didn't get it for a while. So,
Good work, guys.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. All right, we're going to move on to 9B, first reading of the TASB update, 122 and 123. Lyle, whatever you want to say, but it's,
So TASB 122 has 21 pages of updates for you to read, and TASB 123 has 98 pages for your summer reading. And this is just the first reading. I'm just putting this out there. 122 is obviously a lot of the legal policies. 123 is dealing with a lot of local policies, and it covers and a lot of different things. So just that's in your packet, and that is in front of you.
okay. Thank you. 9C, the Operations Safety Report. Lyle, if you will also handle that, please.
So got this, obviously this is in your report from John Knowles, and a couple of things to highlight. Obviously on the stadium lift, that was the proposal, we got one, and it was a lot higher in amount than we were expecting. And so at this time, we've kind of asked that company to go back and look at their proposal and see if there's a way for them to lower that proposal. And it says Crossland has been asked to look at any ways to reduce the amount without creating a nickel and dime approach, while at the same time sustaining accountability. So it looks like the Eagle Stadium lift is kind of at a hold right now based on the amount that they had put on their proposal. I can give you an update. I know in John's report it says the STEM, they did not have a start date yet to be determined. The start date was today. So if you go by there today, they've got a big, all I saw was some big machine doing a lot of dirt work. Right, Stephanie? I think it was an excavator is the right word on that. Look at me learning all these terms. But they started that project, and I think end of the week, I was able to talk to Chris Mildred at maintenance, and he's kind of guiding and keeping me appraised on all these projects, and met with him this morning. He said by the end of the week, we're hoping to have that done at STEM. Also, they started the demo on the McCarroll Middle School scoreboard. And so those guys started that today, and they're hoping to have that done by the end of the week. And then by getting that done, then they'll be able to get with the company and get the new one put in. And the goal is to have that finished and to have the city come out and do their the tests that they do on it, and to do all their stuff that they've got to do by the end of July, and have that ready for August, at the end of August when football games start. But I think middle school football doesn't start till September. But I think the goal is to have that done, the new scoreboard in by the end of July. I know the middle school says here that the McCarroll Middle School fencing will commence by the end of this month in June. Due to weather, the contractor's behind schedule with current projects, but he's still in communications that we've had with him. He still, I think, is not this week, but next week is when he's going to start that, and the goal is to be done by the middle of July. I do know that they did some testing. Centegix did some testing on Friday with all of our alarm systems. And I know we as principals on Friday, when we got those alarms, and we all kind of probably jumped around a little bit. I know I did when I saw all of that happening, but that was John and Riley doing the testing with Centegix and working through the alarm systems, and where they can check the volume of those things and hear those things and work through all of the kinks that they're working through with Centegix and getting all of that done. And also it says, due to the number of school districts in line, the window film project is scheduled to commence late July to early August. And I know they're doing the rock wall project right now that you can see right behind the technology building. The company started that last week, and I think their goal is to be done by the end of the week on that. And I think that's all I've got as far as the maintenance and operations that I know about.
Roughly is the ballpark for the lift on price?
I think.
Oh, it's on there, I'm sorry. I didn't have it.
What was
I don't have
it?
the computer.
Yeah, $587,000.
Any questions for Mr. Lackey? Okay, thank you. Move on to 9D, financial information. Ms. Watson, if you would come back up here, please, which she's on her way. And would you do the microphone again? I'm sorry. The red button.
There we go.
There we go.
Right now for revenue, we're sitting at 86%. A lot of that has to do with the SHARS money that's still in the formal investigation, formal appeal with them to see if they're going to make any headway as to how much they're going to give us from that appeal from the audit for the new board members that happened back last fall. So that is still at just a waiting game for us to get our responses back from them. Everything else is right on schedule. As far as expenditures, we are sitting right at 2% under where we're projected to be at this time this year, so everything's moving along pretty well through there. And then on to the information that you have in front of you. I did a revenue projection because school is now out. And so we have our final average daily attendance. So unfortunately, we ended the year with average daily attendance of just 94.9% overall. So the overall average daily attendance that we're going to get funding for is 3,538 instead of the 3,750 that we had originally budgeted. So we're down 211 students from what we budgeted. So with that all and everything else taken into account, we are up in special ed FTEs, and we are up a few in career and technology. But we're down from our revenue projection from what we thought we were going to have in the budget, about 1.4 million. When you take into account the SHARS revenue and then in the decrease in the state funding due to the decrease in enrollment. So there may be a few minor changes to the average daily attendance when we do resubmission. We're looking into a few changes that might have to, but we got the first initial submission done, so there will be a resubmission that might tweak it, but not enough to make any difference on that. So that's kind of where we're looking at to end this year, unfortunately. And if you add that to the current deficit, then that means this year's projected deficits will almost be right at 3 million going into this year. And then you have what I give you at the end of every 6 weeks. This sheet right here, it kind of shows you the trend of the 6 weeks for the last 10 years, thereabouts. It goes from the district, then down to, for the current year at all the campuses, and then it also takes all the campuses for average daily attendance for 10 years. So you can kind of see the trend. Ever since COVID, it's just, I mean, we aren't the only ones that this happens to. Most school districts in the state of Texas are having trouble with attendance as well. But you can see there's a steady trend of attendance being down. So one thing that we'll have to look at going into the 24-25 budget is because of our enrollment being down for the fast growth allotment, which is about $205,000 that we get every year. Next year, there's a possibility, depending upon how the ratios and all come out, that we might not be eligible for that money because we will no longer be considered fast growth because our enrollment has kind of flattened. So that is something that we'll have to look at and to consider for next year when they come out with all the final projections on that. And then the last thing that I gave you on there is, since we are doing the efficiency audit, that has already started, and we're working on getting them the information that they've requested. And, you know, we did the efficiency audit in order to do the TRE, the voter-approved TRE. And there are all the deadlines and all the requirements for that. And so I gave you all a summary sheet that y'all can look at so you know what the deadlines are coming up. And it's going to be a fast and furious July through August 19th in order to get everything done. So you have to have, whereas in the past, if you're going to call the election, in the past we haven't done the budget until the very end of August. Now we will have to have the audit, not the audit, we'll have to have the budget approved, the tax rate approved, and everything by August 19th, because you have to approve that before you can call for the election. So it will be a very tight time frame when that can all be accomplished. So you'll see all the deadlines there, just so you'll be prepared that those are the deadlines that we have to meet in order to, if you choose to do that, we have to do that. So.
We'll have to do a special meeting before July 5th if we're going to choose an efficiency auditor.
No, we already have that.
Oh, we already have that.
That's what
Okay.
that's what we did
I was confused, sorry. I
Yeah,
thought
that's
this
what we
was-
did in May. And they're in the process of doing that. The real deadline is you get your appraised value, your certified values from the chief appraiser on July 25th. Once you get that, then you have to file for your maximum compressed tax rate, which is a very short turnaround, in order to have it published in the paper by August 9th.
So we're talking about multiple special meetings.
Well, I mean, there's going to be several, so the end of July and through the middle of August is going to be a lot of deadlines and everything to be met.
Which will fit right in because we're going to have multiple budget meetings with the new interim superintendent. So we can address those as we have those meetings.
But we will have to have a budget approved, and you have to adopt the tax rate no later than August 19th.
Right. Yeah.
So, because you do that first and then you call the election,
Okay, great.
just so y'all all be heads up that that's coming.
Thank you. Anything else on the finance side? I know you stay up
No,
here for
I'm staying up here for the next one.
Okay, let's move to 10. First of all, any discussion before I move on to 10?
Did you say we've already selected the efficient auditor?
Yes, we did
was the last
that
meeting.
in May, I think. One of the board meetings in May. So I can't remember if it was a special or the regular in May. It was Whitley Penn.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, action item 10A, consider and take possible action to approve a resolution defeasing a portion of the Decatur Independent School District Unlimited Tax School Building Bonds Series 2004. Yeah, if you would give us kind of an overview of that and just what the ramifications are for that.
What we do is we keep the tax rate the same, regardless of what the property values go up or down. And this allows us to pay off debt early because we collect more taxes in order to pay debt off quicker, and by maintaining a constant INS rate. And this year, we were ending up paying off like $3.7 million, and it's going to end up over the life of those bonds, saving the taxpayers approximately $775,000 in interest that they would no longer have to pay, because we're going to defease a portion of those debts. And this is just a resolution saying that y'all are in agreement to pay the debt off early.
Ready for a motion? I move to adopt a resolution
Defeasing?
portion of the Decatur Independent School District Unlimited Tax School Building Bond Series 2004.
There you go.
Okay, I have a motion from Matt. Do I have a second?
I second.
A second from Sandy. Any discussion? Okay. Well, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes 7-0. We're now going to move to agenda item 11, closed session, executive session. We are doing that at 7:27 p.m. And so we are in closed session right now. I got the PM.
Did you look at me when you said it too?
No.
It sounded like you turned your head.
No.
Just teachers, remember that?
Instructional personnel.
Person, you know what I'm saying? I think it's in the, I think she has it in
Okay. Okay, well, okay, you ready? Okay, we are back in open session at this time. It's 8:31, and we are moving to number 12, action items pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.074, consider and take possible action regarding the employment of an interim superintendent. Do we have a motion?
Mr. President, I move that we secure Dr. Karen Rue as interim superintendent of schools at Decatur Independent School District.
Okay, we have a motion from Matt. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second from Nate. Do we have any discussion at this point?
Is this effective immediately?
This would be effective June 24th, a week from today. Any other questions or discussion? All right, all those in favor, by raising your hand, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes 7-0. 12B, this is consider and take possible action regarding delegation of hiring authority for contractual personnel people to the acting interim superintendent. And it has from June 18th. That can be amended. But let's go ahead and leave that in there, just because, even though that person actually will not start until June 24th. But we have there, just so you know, we have done this historically in the past because of the summer. If those of you who've been on the board with me know that we have done this every year because of how fast things move and the fact that we cannot get special meetings done quick enough. So we give the superintendent, in this case it would be the interim or acting, as we still, Mr. Lackey would have that position for the remainder of this week, that we delegate that hiring authority to them. So just making sure, especially, that's really for the newer board members that we've done that. Okay. Do we have a motion?
I move that the board delegate hiring.
I have a motion from Sandy. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Delvin. Any further discussion on this item? Okay. All those in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes 7-0. 12C, this is consider and take possible action regarding employment of professional personnel for the 2024-2025 school year. There are a number in your board book of all the, I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's about approximately a dozen new hires. Is there any discussion on that before we move to a motion? Is there anybody that even knows any of these people? No, okay. All right, do I have a motion? Oh, sorry. Okay. Mr. Lackey, is there anything you would like to add on that? Okay. Do I have a motion?
I recommend the approval of the professional staff for the 24-25 school year as presented, and authorize the acting superintendent to issue the appropriate contract to the employees listed.
Okay, I have a motion from Delvin. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second from Jeremy. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, by raising your hand, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. The motion passes 7-0. Number 13, adjournment at 8:36. We are adjourned. Do you need these?
I don't remember those.
Yeah, why don't you put those in
I think
there?
one time Dylan ripped them up.
That is funny.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for staying and doing it. I know you've got a personal issue to deal with, so thanks for staying and taking care of that.